Where have you been? What do you mean, where have I been? Come on. Flying back and forth across the country. Just landed at JFK a couple hours ago in my hotel. Got some notes that I've been taking for days. Some stuff's happening. Things are happening in pinball right now. It's about to get really busy. So this is episode 67, Coast to Coast Pinball. Let's go. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinball. This is Nate Shivers. It's a podcast of commentary. I'm a man out of quarters, all that good stuff. Episode number 67. I've been busy. I've been working. It's a job thing. Man, tell you what. So I flew back to San Diego and had all the great intentions of getting a podcast recorded. I'm just going to get some news out, answer some of these emails. I have tons of emails, and none of that happened. So I flew back to New York today. I've got work this week. Here I am, a little bit of peace and quiet in my hotel room. And I guess I have to ask you, like, what do you think the big story is right now? We got some insight into what the premium and limited edition Ford Mustang pinball machines are going to look like. Feature sets, we got that going on. We finally got a major code update for Metallica. That's quite the story. There are some major pinball shows and tournaments quickly approaching, coming up very soon, this month and next. That's all going on. There are many other boutique games either finishing up, becoming complete, starting to ship. It's happening. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So I think the first thing we're going to do is jump into the highlights and lowlights of these new Stern Mustang Premium and Limited Edition pinball machines.
Highlights and lowlights.
So when I first heard John Trudeau was designing pinball again, and for Stern, where we would see lots of machines, I was really excited because I've always thought John brought a pretty clever take on pinball playfield layouts. I think when you have games like Creature from the Black Lagoon, where there's sort of a lot of stuff crammed into the middle, and the shots sort of flow up through that middle and around the sides, I thought that's pretty different and neat. Judge Dredd's a great one where there's no pop bumpers and you have these big looping shots and long ramps. I always I kind of liked his take. They're different. It wasn't the same fan layout we saw on so many other machines. However, of course, if you've listened to the show, you know my enthusiasm for the theme. You know, Ford Mustang, 50 years of Mustang, whatever, has not been exactly, I don't know, through the roof. Not that I think it's a bad theme for pinball, because I think cars and that sort of stuff generally does work fairly well in pinball. It just doesn't excite me personally. And since this is a commentary from me, I've had to kind of amp myself up for this a little bit and try and look for things on what limited information we have so far on Mustang that I could get excited about. Obviously, John Trudeau himself being the biggest thing for me. So the Pro was released, at least photos of it were released, so we could kind of take a look at it and see it. And again, I just wasn't really feeling what I was seeing. I didn't. It didn't seem ingenious and innovative to me. It sort of seemed, I don't know, dare I say, a tad bit safe, a bit boring. I mean, we saw a big Mustang car in the middle. I think we only have one ramp. We had tons of color. I mean, lots of color. And I think it almost, maybe it's too much. It has a little bit of a Wheel of Fortune vibe to me on some level, just the amount of color. I thought the top, inlane rollover targets were cool. I kind of like that little design, but that's pretty small. It has an interesting, interesting spot for the pop bumpers. Captive ball donut thing. I mean, that's kind of cool. It's all right. We saw the little end whirlpool, shot ramp thing coming off the right ramp return to the right flipper, sort of like Creature from the Black Lagoon. So, overall, it was just, a theme I wasn't excited about and a playfield that didn't immediately, scream out to me. However, there have been other games in history that I would glance at and not think were that amazing. Star Trek, for instance. We just got Star Trek. On first viewing of Star Trek's playfield, I didn't get it that much either. It's so clearly a takeoff of Spider-Man that it's absolutely, it's almost crazy how close that game is to Spider-Man. More on that later. But once I played that game, I kind of got it. The mix of the shots and the flow and the music and the sound and the call-outs and the ship, it all kind of came together really nicely. So that very well may happen with Mustang. And it's not a game I certainly would be really inclined to think about owning. When we talk about owning, $4,000 to $8,000 games, I kind of got to like the theme. I'm not a guy who just buys everything and sees how it plays and dumps the ones I don't like. I'm more of a, if the theme's really cool and I get to play it and I like it, then I'll think about buying it. So anyway, the Pro, Stern puts out these sheets, these, like, they call them a game features matrix, where they list all the features of the games, and then they have the Pro, the Premium, and the LE columns and check marks in the column for each one. So it's a great way to look at the games and kind of see what the differences are. And I took some notes and ran down what all the differences between the three models are. There's very little difference between the games when you get to the Premium and the LE. So for most of this, if I say Premium, I mean both of them. I will tell you right now, there are a few differences, most of them cosmetic. Obviously, all three have different art. All three have different Mustang toys in the center of the game. And the LE, in addition to that, has an illuminated speaker surround, so like lights around the speakers, and like hexagon cut laser cut grills over the speakers. So just a little extra ornamentation around the actual speakers. Also, the back box of the limited edition gets 5 flashers, or flash lamps, as they call them. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of difference when you go Premium to limited edition. Things like your serial number plate and certificate of authenticity is with your limited edition. You get the signature of John Trudeau underneath the clear coat. That sort of stuff. But other than that, we're pretty much looking at 2 versions of the game, basically, and then a third with just some extra ornamental stuff. So I think the 2 big main changes here, maybe 3. To me, there's 3 big takeaways when you go from Pro to the higher cost Premium LEs. They added 2 drop targets called hazard targets onto the playfield of the more expensive models. And there's one to the left, like towards the, I don't know if it covers the left orbit shot or not, but there's a stand-up target, like a post target, on the left-hand side that it's in front of. And then there's also one to the right. And it's funny because I was just talking with somebody about playfield design and how I thought it would be wise for somebody to sort of take out features from like games like Big Bang Bar or Cactus Canyon, games with super limited production that maybe people haven't played a lot, and use those features. And I actually specifically said someone needs to do the Cactus Canyon shooting target gimmick where targets pop up around the playfield. And I was quickly reminded that Big Buck Hunter sort of has that, I believe. So that has been done. And this is what, at first glance, that's what I thought they were doing here, but it's really not. It's really just 2 drop targets that are sort of blocking your shots. And these caution drop targets are going to be a definite part of the gameplay. So that's major change number 1. Major change number 2 is the diverter on the ramp. There's a vertical, almost think Street Fighter, where the ramp can have 2 different shots based on whether or not the diverter is up or down on the ramp. That's a major playfield change. That's we talk a lot about does the gameplay really change between the lower cost models and the higher cost models? Well, it does there. I mean, now you have shots that can do different things, and you have more options of shots on the higher cost models. And then I guess the other thing, I don't know how much this affects gameplay, but it's definitely a major change to the game. On the Pro model, your Mustang toy, which I guess these toys are all 1/24th scale Mustang cars, and on the Pro is a yellow car in the red box, which to my eyes doesn't look all that great, but whatever. That car is static and just sits above the drop targets, the gears drop targets. On the Premium, it's a blue car. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. On the LE, it looks to be a blue car. And on the Premium, I think it's a red car. that is no longer just static and sitting up on top there. It actually is on a turntable, which rotates, which I think is pretty cool, actually. And you'll notice this game, all three of the models have spotlights, two of them facing back towards the Mustang toy, lighting it up. So the car will definitely be seen and featured. And on the higher cost games, it will actually rotate and spin. Like I said, I don't know that changes anything as far as the gameplay goes, but it is different, and it is kind of a major thing. So those to me are the three, big things there. That is a red car in there. Yeah, it's a red car. So I think the red car in the premium actually looks the best of the three that I've seen. So past that, there are definitely some other things going on here. One thing that I had missed on the initial launch of the Pro, and we talked about this when the game was first announced, is that they were licensing music from Sony Music Corporation for the history, the 50 years of Mustang. So they're going to use all this music, going back 50 years. And one of the upgrades you get for the premium and the limited edition listed here is 8 songs spanning the time frame instead of 4 songs. And was I the only one that read that and went, 4 songs? The Pro only has 4 different songs? Kind of surprising to me. That's not very much. When you come off of games like AC/DC and Metallica, which have a lot of music, granted all from one band, but that's the theme, I'm just surprised there's so few songs. That's kind of a bummer. I really was shocked at that. So, I don't know. I guess that's sort of a big deal. Shaker motor in the limited edition, that is a difference, but I think people will be adding a lot of shaker motors to their premiums. So the GI, the general illumination on all of these games is LEDs, which is cool. I think that's great. That's a step in the right direction. I believe the inserts on all of these games are also LEDs. Also very cool. I think it's 103 inserts with controlled LEDs on all these games. However, on the premium and the LE, you get these 8 race shot arrows that are like extra inserts that aren't on the Pro with full spectrum, and that's in quotes, full spectrum color LEDs, or as we call them, color changing LEDs. Also changes gameplay quite a bit. That actually might be a bigger change to the game than the car on the platform, because those flashing arrows change how everything works. And I have not investigated super deep into this to see if those inserts are still there and just don't change color on the Pro, or if they're actually, new inserts. I'm not totally sure on that. I think as I see more of the game, I'll be able to figure that out. So, but the way it's worded, it seems like those arrows are not on the Pro at all. So we'll have to clear that up. See, we talked about that. Fancy speaker surrounds on the LE. Fancy schmancy stuff like that. The car toy on the premium and the LE is swappable, as they say, which means if you have a favorite Mustang car, you can actually change out to one of the other model cars. This is where it starts going down the rabbit hole of Mustang fans and Ford fans, which I just doesn't really play to me. That doesn't appeal to me at all, really. So one other pretty main feature change is your diverter for the top lanes in the Pro game is just a post style diverter. Just, like a little plastic post pops up to divert the ball depending on what's happening and where your shot's going. In the higher end models, you actually have 2 electric controlled gates, I guess, on either side, which is definitely an upgrade in gameplay. There's some powder coating on the steel bottom arch on the higher end models. Then there's also this action button that's on the lockdown bar. So the Pro just has a regular dual latch lockdown bar listed. The Premium and the LE have a deluxe lockdown bar with action button. And the LE goes as far as to say it has an action button trim plate. Okay? So what does this action button do? Well, I don't know. I don't know that anybody knows yet. They haven't really told us. So that's also going to, make the game play differently. You take all of this that we kind of went over there, and you get into it a little bit, and you start to feel like the Pro is going to definitely be a game with less to do and less going on and not play as well. I was reading the main, Pinside thread. If you go under the Stern subforum, the Stern Pinball subforum, I went in there and was like looking, well, where'd the Mustang thread go? And in the last 2 days, there's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 other threads with posts more recent than the last Mustang thread, which is Mustang LE! Which I thought was sort of interesting, because usually when a new game is announced and there's, stuff coming out on it, that's all anybody talks about. But instead, you have your top, 15 posts just dominated by Metallica and Star Trek, which I guess the counter argument to that is those are the games people are getting right now and what they have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of talk about the new update for Metallica. There's a lot of talk about what's going on with Star Trek. Will there be an update soon, etc.? Not a lot of talk about Mustang, and I think that also speaks to what I said, that this theme maybe doesn't resonate, and what we've seen so far of the playfield just might not be that exciting. I hope that I played this game and that it's just awesome, and that it has awesome flow, and that the sound and everything works great. But so far, I gotta say, I'm a little cautious on this one.
Forum static.
Static might be an understatement. So I've actually had multiple emails and seen other people posting just about the level of rhetoric and arguing and complaining and all the stuff going on in the Pinside forums right now. There's a few threads on Pinside that I'll be really honest with you. I sort of avoid them. Sometimes I avoid them just because they have a crazy, ridiculous thread count, and the idea of digging into a thread with 3,600 posts titled "Some EM Classics Just Came Up on eBay" or whatever that thread's called, it just frightens me. It's like, I can't have any part of that. What would I possibly do with a thread that long? I think I one time made a joke about the Wisconsin thread. Is it Wisconsin Minnesota thread? And it's just really big. Yes, Wisconsin, Minnesota people, I'm telling you, your thread is really, really big. And just that mention of it, I got a couple emails from people saying, "Oh man, you got to read the thread. You got to understand." And I'm like, dude, your thread's like 400 pages long or something. I can't read the thread. Sometimes there's threads that deal with subjects that I don't really understand that well. And I have loved pinball for a long time. I have been buying and playing pinball machines for, I don't know, honestly, 5-6 years. Before that, I was a casual player. I would find them out in the world and just play them whenever. Had certain games I really liked, and if I saw them somewhere, I would play them. And I've been really actively, obsessing about pinball for not that long of a time, really. Maybe 2 years. And I didn't even post on Pinside for the first year, maybe. I just was a quiet lurker in the forums and didn't really dive too deep into a lot of those really long threads. So there's threads like, I don't know, the Thunderbirds thread, sorry. I'm all worked up. The Thunderbirds thread, that, man, it's like, I try to read that thread, and I've had people ask me to, weigh in on that thread, and I can't do it. And that's the one about, Australia-based company making their Thunderbirds pinball machine. And there was some drama in the thread, and I don't know. I can't I can't really do that. At some point, I may address the home pin Thunderbirds pinball. I probably will as they get closer to an actual game. And I'll talk about it more from the pinball side of things, and not so much the personality of the said owner, because, However, we had another thread about another topic pop up in the last week or so that I got sucked into pretty early on and kind of couldn't help myself. It was sort of like a car crash. And that thread, which you may or may not have seen, is entitled, Illinois Pinball, Are They Done? And this is one of those weird subjects where I don't know the people very well directly involved. I don't know all the history. I have a kind of an idea of what has gone on in my head, and I don't know how well I can articulate it. I would have a tough time explaining to someone who knew none of this exactly what's going on. But to give you the dumb person's simple summary of what's going on, Illinois Pinball, owned by Gene Cunningham, bought the rights to reproduce parts for the Williams Valley games. Okay, and I'm even fuzzy on exactly that, as they may have well been too, because I think there was a lot of fuzziness when Williams, or whoever, whatever Williams became, sold off the rights to the pinball licensing stuff. So Gene Cunningham, larger-than-life character in the industry. Gene was also on Capcom pinball stuff, and was behind the Big Bang Bar remake, which was basically a disaster on every level, except that they actually got the games built. He lost money by all accounts, paid for his own money to get the thing built. Some have lauded Gene Cunningham as like a hero or just an amazing ambassador of pinball because he built these games, and they got these 150 or so Big Bang bars made. He talked about doing Kingpin as well, which never came to fruition. Gene was a fixture at the shows and had tons and tons of new old stock Williams parts. Gene also was a businessman on some other levels. I think his family was in real estate and some other ventures like that. And Gene has a, let's say, questionable reputation by many as far as business transactions goes. Some of these transactions that have been sort of accused of Gene have been really simple things, like not providing what he said he was going to sell, or not sticking to the terms of a sale. And this may be a parts sale, it could be a machine sale. Jim was sort of a collector of lots and lots and lots of machines. I've heard over 1,500. I think in the thread I saw the number 1,600 machines. By all accounts, the games were not in the greatest of shape. He would just kind of buy whatever. Gene was someone who many people thought was in it just to be in it and kind of have the quote, and I use quotes really loosely here, the fame of it. I don't think fame is exactly the right word. The notoriety within this hobby of being the guy who has all the access to all the parts that everybody needs. I think that's a little bit just my opinion of what I can best surmise. No, I don't know Gene. I never dealt with Gene. I've never tried to buy anything from Gene. I have friends who did. I have friends who had great transactions with Illinois Pinball. So basically what's gone on recently is it sounds like Gene personally has gone into bankruptcy, and that went from a Chapter 11 reorganization style bankruptcy to now a Chapter 7 like liquidation bankruptcy. So that's bad. That basically means you have to sell off everything of yours that's not like just necessary to live to pay off debts that you owe. And it sounds like he owes a lot of money to some banks. And I think first thing people need to realize, it's not a pinball business that sunk him here into this bankruptcy. From what I've read and people I have talked to, it's definitely more on the real estate side of things. We're talking a lot more money involved there. I don't think the pinball business was helping all that much. I don't think he was profitable. Obviously, the Big Bang Bar scenario. So I'm not going to really comment too much on Gene as a guy because I personally don't have any firsthand knowledge. So I don't think that's fair. The thread is something. I mean, you'll get into it and you'll see that there's another business who has some extremely strong feelings, and this is Pinball Inc. that I'm speaking of now, about Gene and how badly Gene was to deal with, and really some bitter feelings going on there. And there's some people that pop up and defend Gene, but there's also some people who I know and have talked to who are in that thread who are not defending Gene, and so it kind of puts me in the position of, I believe those people, and just because you had a good experience with someone doesn't mean he didn't make some really big mistakes elsewhere. So what I'll say about the situation is this. From my point of view, people are quick to say, oh, he was great for the industry, he was great for the hobby, blah, 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 blah. So we had that dark days period, think post-Williams, 2000 to like the mid-2000s, where nobody was able to make parts. There were parts literally built sitting in pallets somewhere, and there's no access to it. So it was kind of the dark ages for collectors who are trying to get parts and reproduction pieces. And then Gene pops up as sort of one of the first major, people to start pushing that as the license holder. And people liked that. And then Gene does this, build of this really, really rare game, and he does it exactly like an original and really holds to it. That seemed really important to Gene in the Big Bang Bar. It's not a remake. It was really a production of 150, quote, original Big Bang Bars using parts he got out of the Capcom pinball closing. Well, I have a tough time viewing all that in really good, happy light. I don't view what went on there as really a good thing. I view it as sort of unfortunate in somebody who probably meant well. I'm an optimist. I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt that in a quiet, dark room, Gene Cunningham probably really just liked pinball and thought it was cool. Most of us do. We like it. It's awesome. It's pretty. It's fun. People obsess about it. It's great. And he wanted to be a part of it as much as he could be. And he probably got in way over his head on some levels and took on more than he could chew and had big dreams. And, everybody's personality is different. Some people need a partner. Some people need structure. Some people need, a business around them to succeed. And then some people are better off just on their own doing it. And I don't think Gene was best on his own doing it. It sounds to me like Big Bang Bar just would have never happened if a lot of other people hadn't stepped up and pushed it through. And I think that's probably not a good thing in a lot of ways, that it went down the way it did, and that we have now this sort of inner ring of Big Bang Bar owners that are, have these holy grail $20,000 machines, and that's not really good to me on any level. I mean, I guess it's good that some of them float around the shows and you get to play them. That's good, but I would hope that, I guess in a perfect world, somebody else would have gotten all those licenses and all those parts and could have done something more like the Medieval Madness remake with that game and could have built 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000. In a perfect world, somebody with the ability to manufacture and run a business and distribute would have gotten those licenses years ago and been building these parts and having distributors on both coasts and down the center of the country and in Australia, getting parts out to everybody at a fair price where everybody was happy and made money and people got the parts they needed, and not this sort of sticky, bad business, horrible website, and now, sadly, kind of, I don't want to use the word tragic, because it's not tragic. This is far from tragic. Just a sort of clunky, bad ending to a pinball story. Is it tragic that a guy is, and I don't know how old Gene is, I think he's an older guy, is basically going to have to go through this bankruptcy and lose a lot of his personal wealth, if not all of it, at a point in life where he may be able to not make it all back? Yeah, I mean, tragedy, them's the breaks sometimes. You win some, you lose some. I've won some and lost some in my lifetime. So it's not a tragedy, but it's just kind of, it's not optimum. It's not great. And I would hope that going forward, people in this hobby that are going to step up and want to be that guy, want to be this guy that says, I'm going to control this, are wide-sighted enough, can take a long view on what they're doing and know why they're doing it. Are you doing it to make money? Because that's okay. It's all right to do things to make money. And if you know what you're doing and you're making money, that can be the best outcome for people sometimes. Sometimes that's the best thing, is that somebody who's driven to make a profit takes a hold of a business or a project and runs it, because then it'll be done right, because they want to make money and get paid. Are you doing it because you have an absolute love for it? I look at some of the high-end restorers in this community, in this hobby. Think the Chris Hutchins and the Brian Kellys, and it's like, those guys are not getting rich fixing up pinball machines, but you can tell they love it. You can tell that just by the work they put into it and the detail that goes into it, they love it, and that's great too. So if you want to get in and like be a part of, some aspect of this hobby, do it because you really love it. That's great. That's a good reason. But if you're just doing it because you're obsessive and you feel like that's your place to belong, and that maybe that's what'll gain you notoriety, and I'm not saying that that's what Gene was doing, but I think there was some aspect of that there, just reading between the lines. So if that's your reason when you're out buying a bunch of games or opening up a place to play pinball, sometimes, doing it maybe poorly or not 100%, it's actually worse, because you might be cutting off the opportunity for somebody else to do it better. So, I don't know. That's not the greatest answer about that thread. People ask me what I thought about that thread. That's kind of me trying to take as wide of a view as I can on it. And, I wish everybody the best. I hope nobody got taken too bad in any of these bad deals that I've been reading about. And I hope that Gene isn't going to get completely raked over the coal just on a human level. If he owes people money, he's got to pay it. If he has assets that the bankruptcy folks are going to look for, he has to give them up. That's the rules that we as a country and a society have put in place. So I hope that all works out for him, and I hope that he can maybe get away from pinball and find a little bit of peace of mind. The happy ending to this little story might be Gene just putting a quarter in a game somewhere and enjoying pinball, right? So, I don't know. Maybe that's too out there. All right. First thing here. I really, really became a fan of the Pinheads Pinball podcast after listening to episode 3. I will admit, episode 1 was not my favorite thing I've ever heard. I hate to criticize. I would never have brought this up on this show if I wasn't able to follow it up with, I loved episode 3. 3 was excellent. If you haven't yet listened to Pinhead's Pinball podcast, this is a podcast from Australia, which I've mentioned on the show before. There's 3 gentlemen who host it, Rod, Gaz, and Stevie, and they have 3 episodes out. I don't think I've even listened to episode 2, but I listened to episode 3. Longer form, I think monthly is kind of the output here. And not only is hearing a take on pinball from Australia very interesting and neat, because obviously their history has both mirrored the same history any of us here in the United States would have had with the same games being released, but it's also very different because things came in different sequence. You got games at a different pace. What was popular in Australia was certainly not the same as here always. And definitely guys that know their games, for sure. Like, they know a lot about a lot of different games. Although, the main host, and I believe that's Rod, really wants a Party Zone. And I have to then question, have you played that much Party Zone? And I only say that because I owned a Party Zone for a long time. And it's okay. It's all right. However, I really, really liked episode 3. And I didn't have episode 2 on my phone. And I was listening to 3 and I thought it was 2. And that's why I listened to 3. But anyway, what I'm bringing this up for, there's a reason here, is because in episode 3, they go into great detail and have a nice interview with Kevin Kulick from Skit B about the Predator pinball machine and sort of how they got there, what it's going to be like, and what's next. And it's really, really good. And I haven't talked to Skit B and Predator very much on Coast to Coast Pinball. And it's kind of because, okay, A, I was scared of the big long thread on Pinside. Yes, granted. But B, it was a game that nobody really could get that wasn't already getting it. they had a license to build a certain amount of games, and that was it. And then they're done. 150 games. That's all. So I wasn't very interested in it from that standpoint because I couldn't buy one if I wanted one. Now, I'm going to get to play one at the Midwest Gaming Classic soon, and that's really good. But listening to Kevin talk about it, it's pretty awesome about some of the ups and downs and things that they've run into. What I really thought was great is they are going to build a next game. There is a next game. They're going to have what he termed himself in this interview with the Pinheads guys, a much more modern theme, and a theme without the limits of production. I don't know why the people that had the license to Predator would limit them to such a small run of machines. I have no idea. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They don't seem to know why either. It just kind of was done that way. And maybe that's Skitby just being new at business and not totally knowing themselves. But I'm excited because they took the most open source build approach ever. That thread, if you can jump into the threads, there's two main threads on Pinside about it. But the one I'm actually reading now is their latest, which is Predator Pinball Mission Complete. And that's even 12 pages, sort of about the fact that they're there, that it's pretty much there. And there's great photos throughout the thread. The game looks really cool. I like the art. It's original art, so you don't have photos from the movie Predator all over the playfield. I'm really interested to play it because I think that's always kind of the $24 million question is like, all right, you screwed a bunch of stuff to a piece of wood, you've got flippers on it, you drop some balls in, but how does it play? How does it feel? How's the rule set? I start reading people who are actually getting this game, getting really paranoid that maybe this game is not deep enough and it's too easy to play, too easy to beat. And then there's the argument, no, they just set it up like that for that show. Don't worry, you're fine. So I'm really interested to actually see it, play it, touch it, and kind of see what these guys in their basement could do. Skit B, some kids in the basement, right, or their basement. It's a pretty cool story. So it's one of the homebrew boutique, whatever you want to call it, pinball stories that we've been following the longest. So be sure and check that out. And while you're doing that, go check out the Pinheads Pinball Podcast. Yes. Metallica. So we got finally the long-awaited first round of code updates for Metallica. And I don't own a Metallica, but it's definitely, if I had like a top 3 games I'm like itching to buy right now, it's one of them. I gotta tell you, I'm horrible when it comes down to pulling the trigger on a new game when there's a pro and a premium, because I can't decide. And I've read threads and threads and threads about both Metallica and Star Trek and Pro versus Premium. I've played them all. I played the 2 Metallicas within, I don't know, an hour of each other a couple weeks ago. And then I played the 2 Star Treks within a day of each other. I went Premium to Pro. Is that what I did? No, I went Pro to Premium. And, I don't know. I think the bigger story here is the rule set for Metallica that Lyman Sheets has dreamt up and started putting out is really good, and people are reacting great to this. It fixed a lot of little things. People had issues with their premium and LE hammers. That's been well documented. And this is one of the big changes. So they've reduced the checking for the ball sequence down to like 1 second. So it has to do with the magnet and grabbing the ball and whatnot. So anyway, play should be better with this new code as far as some little things. I know the top diverter post situation has been straightened out too. That was something that was kind of driving people insane. But the rule set is now a lot deeper. They added these new modes that you can now get to, the crank it up. You light crank it up by collecting a certain number of the grave markers, electric chairs, coffins, and snakes. and then there's an end of a line, sort of like the wizard mode at the end of all of that. So I haven't gotten to play a game with new code yet. I'm hoping to run into one on this trip. I think I have a couple opportunities to do that. I think they made the game harder on certain levels. I think they increased the stock number, or the out of the box default number of hits to start certain things, like even Sparky multi-ball, I believe. That's very cool. Lots of little adjustment things were changed. You can control like slingshot power. They added certain sounds for like draining when you have coffin multi-ball going on. They added a new sound. They've changed some of the call-outs. They added fade to black, which is the playfield gets darker as you play, which I believe is only premium and LE. And then there's a battery mode now. There's more with the band members. Those are being integrated more. And what's really cool is all this stuff. I mean, in the list of stuff that's in this update is pretty big. But let me tell you what's great is they're not done. They're about 2 weeks out from another update that will include the new songs that were voted on, which will get added into the game, and then probably more with the band members, maybe some more with the lights by the fuel target. Mystery is not always 500,000 points now. That's fantastic. So it really is a great update by reading what people are saying about it. I think this is going to solidify in the long run, I believe, Metallica so far is the top recent release Stern. I think it will eventually be thought of by many people above AC/DC. And I've played a lot of both machines, and I prefer Metallica myself. Those that own AC/DC and not Metallica will, of course, disagree vehemently with me. AC/DC still ranked well ahead of Metallica on the Pinside Top 100. I think AC/DC is top 5, and Metallica is not in the top 10. I don't believe. Metallica Premium LE is actually not in the top 20. It's down to 22, where it had started out real high. But I think that will rise over time. People are still buying a lot of Metallica machines right now, and I think this round of code updating will really excite people. Just like I think X-Men is running into that right now. I've been watching some sales of some X-Men around different outlets in the country. So it's a great thing that some code is coming out for these games and really dialing these in. I think it's going to be very exciting to see how these great games that people are, really applauding the gameplay and the layouts and the art and how good and how fun they are, to now have the rule set to sort of back all of that up. So really looking forward to see how Metallica progresses, and that's a big pat on the back for Stern Pinball on that one for sure. Quite frankly, I'm ashamed at my inbox at coast2coastpinball@gmail.com and how jam-packed full it is. I've been very bad at this, so I want to jump right into these. Carl has emailed me, and I want to read his first because I think it's an important one. Carl emailed me and says, "Hey Nate, I wanted to send you an invite to a fundraiser we're running for Python Angelo, and also see if you could give it a plug on one of your upcoming episodes." Yes, we will do that now. It's called Play Your Heart Out, a pinball tournament and party for the benefit of pinball visionary Python Angelo. It will be held March 22nd by Steve Subota, I believe that's how he says his name, in Newport Coast, California. There's a website at playyourheartout.org, playyourheartout.org, and he invited me to come out and reminded me that Steve is a collector of some just amazing, very rare games. I unfortunately have a concert that I have tickets to. I'm taking Teresa to see a concert, and we won't be able to go out, unfortunately. But I do want to recommend anybody in Southern California. I know we have a lot of Southern California listeners to go to playyourheartout.org, check out the time frame. It's sort of an late afternoon into the evening, like with a free play party after the tournament time. So something for everybody. If I'm going to be in the south side of San Diego and in the bottom of the city at a concert that night, or I would have absolutely gone up. In fact, when I got the email, I grabbed my calendar because I was going to mark it on my calendar, but unfortunately I have prior commitments. So check that out. Python Angelo is battling cancer. I don't know if, I'm sure anybody that's listening to this show probably knows that, and a lot of tournaments are being held all over. He's definitely one of the most enigmatic characters in all of pinball history. Great art. I mean, fantastic art. Quite the mind on Python Angelo. So, a lot of our, sort of pinball hero type people are older and running into, tougher times and health problems at this point in many of their lives. So it's very cool to see the hobby and the community, come together. I know there was a big tournament out here in Connecticut not too long ago. When I was out here, I was actually trying to sneak away from work. Couldn't make that one either. So, but check that out. I know there's some other, sites where you can donate to Python Angelo directly if you're listening to this from out of the area and you want to just contribute a little bit of help to somebody who might needs it that played a big part in pinball history and lore. So, Carl, thank you very much for the email. Hopefully we'll run into each other again sometime, but really, really wish I could have made it out to that. All right, let's see. Piglet, who is Lacey, Piglet's her email address, says, "Hi Nate, love the show. I used to play Metallica and hate it. I just played the update and it's actually fun and mysterious now. I'm sure you'll get a lot of this today, but I just had to say it. It's about time. Thanks for doing what you do, Lacey from Orlando." Lacey, you may be the first female listener that I can verify. Maybe. So for that, we thank you. Awesome. And yeah, I got quite a few emails already from Metallica owners saying what you just said, that it's fun and mysterious, that type of stuff. Absolutely. So just like I was just talking about, that Metallica, I think, took a huge leap forward. So thank you for listening and thanks for the email. I do appreciate it. Let's see here. So my buddy Shane from Australia, whose t-shirts got returned to me, is going to pick them up in person at the Texas Pinball Festival. He wanted to remind me that Metallica Code came out like everybody else did. And then, let's see, he was telling me that today was Steve Ritchie. So this was about a week ago. So not today, but about a week ago, he saw this cool post by Steve Ritchie, who posted that it was the 40th anniversary of the day that Steve had walked into Atari Games in Los Gatos, California, looking for work and getting hired. And his mom sort of chided him, like, "Do you really think you're going to make a career out of this?" And Steve's kind of writing a little note to his mom saying, "Yes, well, Mom, it turned out to be a great career for me." So that was kind of cool. So Shane would let me know that post came out there on Facebook from Steve Ritchie. So very cool. So I'm going to get to meet Shane in person in not too long. Let's see. Rob wrote me, "Nate, a listener asked about what part of the machine to get autographed a few shows back. Actual aprons or translights are cool for signatures if you can get them done in person. However, I've printed up my own minimalist apron cards to be signed. The attached photos here. Nothing fancy, in keeping with the monochrome nature of the original cards. Tried to design them in the same style as the original RHS pricing card. I can't make it to the big name shows to meet these guys in person as life gets in the way, so these are easy to send through the mail to acquire a signature. If I ever sell the machine, I figure I can at least keep the signature rather than having to sell it off with the machine if they had actually signed an integral part of the pin." That's great. And a little secret trivia that Rob lets me in on. There was one pinball luminary who did ask for a signing fee, who I will leave nameless, but he did note that John Trudeau sent along a really nice letter along with the return card. Total class act and a great guy. So I really appreciate that, Rob. He sent me a photo of some of his signed cards, and they're very cool. They're neat. I like that a lot. It's a great idea. In fact, I hope Rob, you should post that on Pinside. I think a lot of people would get a kick out of doing that sort of thing. And really, if you're whoever and you design pinball machines and you're at the shows and you're trying to make a little bit of money from autographs, they should make their own cards. And if I designed, say, I don't know, some really famous pinball machine, like if I designed Poker Joker, and Poker Joker had sold 40,000 machines, I'd bring cool little Poker Joker rule cards with me and sign those if you wanted it. And I'd charge you $20 or something. Just a thought. Anyway, thanks for the email, Rob. I appreciate it. Let's see what else we got here. Corey sent me some emails. Corey said, "What's up, Nate? Just thought I'd let you know that there's a new arcade here in town in the Houston area called the Game Preserve. They currently have 23 pins and tons of vids, too. Just to name a few of the games: Addams Family, Doctor Who, Elvira, F-14, Jackbot, Johnny Mnemonic, Ripley's Congo, World Cup Soccer, and everybody's favorite, Fishtails." I'll talk about Fishtails in a minute. Going for the first time tonight. So Corey wrote me that. That's actually a really cool selection of games. He sent me a photo, which will go up on the website tonight, of Corey in a fantastic-looking Coast2Coast Pinball t-shirt, leaned up against a Tron machine. I like that, so that will have to go onto Facebook this evening. Like I said, if you send me a photo, I will post it, and you'll always get your email read. And then he said, after he went to the arcade, "Had a great time. My only complaint would be that they were a lot of them were very dim. They would be well served installing some LEDs. Love the show, Nate." Thank you, Corey. He also sent me a photo. It looks like this long line of pinball machines there at the Game Preserve in Houston. So if you're in Texas, you have a new place to go play pinball. That's awesome. If you're operating games out in the wild, put LEDs in the machines. I can't stress that enough. If people have seen pinball machines with LEDs and then they see games without LEDs, they look old and tired. I would recommend investing the money. It'll save you in the long run. You'll replace them less. You'll spend less money on power, and they'll earn you more. It's one of the reasons Wizard of Oz is earning people so much money. Is it lights up crazy bright, and people are drawn to that. We like pretty shiny things. So thank you, Corey. I do appreciate the email. I just read an email here that I don't want to screw up your name, but Gianluca from Italy got hooked to your podcast. Really like your t-shirt design. Would like both the traditional white on blue or green and the newer midnight type. Both XL if available. All right, we'll talk about t-shirts here really quick. I think I screwed up and didn't get back to him quick enough to get these because he's coming out to Pinburg, and he wanted to get the shirts for Pinburg. Maybe I can make that happen. So in shirts right now, I have some of the midnight shirts left. Those sold way better than I would have thought. I don't really have the green left. The original green ones are sort of gone. I think there's some smalls and maybe a medium is all that's left in there. Those original ones. Gone. I have a couple of black with white lettering, but what I have a lot of now is the two latest designs, which is a dark gray with black text, and I'll post photos of that soon. And then I'm on the road for a week, but Teresa just let me know at home that my newest box of shirts came in, and it's sort of a athletic gray colored shirt with, I believe, white print on it. And I'll have both of those two designs, the light gray and the dark gray, at the Texas Pinball Festival. And then whatever's left will also go to the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I will also have a new design for Midwest Gaming Classic. And by design, I mean choice of color, basically.